Warren Shaw. We about to get into some GameFace Lee things.
So you saying that to say what?
I'm saying this only because you're hearing it.
No, you saying something. If you saying it, I'm hearing it because you saying it. What are you saying? Let it be said.
Well, I think it's unfortunate. I think it's really unfortunate. I think that it's an honor and a privilege to go to the White House, no matter who the president is. It's an honor and privilege to go to the White House. And also, I thought it would have been an opportunity for those guys to sit down and talk to the president about some of the issues and concerns they had.
Cal Lee of the Baseline NBA podcast, another segment of Speak On It, my dude. So you just heard these comments that were provided to us by Charles Barkley, NBA legend, NBA on TNT and analyst. And basically, he was expressing his disappointment in the Warriors, specifically players like Steph Curry, who've elected not to visit the president of the United States and the administration, like normal sports ritual would be that if you win a championship, you go to the White House and you chum it up with the president, you take photographs and, they make customized jerseys and they roast each other a little bit and, all of that good stuff. In any other particular scenario, I would have probably said in my youthful days, I would have been like, yeah, that's just wrong. But as you get older and you have a family, you have children, all of a sudden that perspective tends to change. And there's something that's very interesting about the comments that Charles Barkley made that I think needs to be brought to light. While I understand where Charles Barkley was coming from, I vehemently disagree with his perspective about disappointment in the Golden State Warriors. As an organization, you have an opportunity, and it is your opportunity. Now, whether you choose to take advantage of that opportunity or you don't, I think is entirely up to you. But when you start using that as a means to justify a talking point, I then begin to wonder, what were you expecting or hoping that would be accomplished with the premise for what the Warriors are going there for? This is a photo op. What constructive conversation could the Warriors possibly have in sitting down to speaking with the president, Donald Trump, and his administration that would make tangible moves of implementing a progression of what needs to be discussed? Simply put, Steph Curry, as a player and as a man, he just doesn't want to be around Donald Trump. He just doesn't believe and feel like Donald Trump is about him, his race, his people, his culture, and he has a right to feel that way. Why should Steph Curry, why should Kevin Durant compromise those values and they be chastised, they be scrutinized when you've got players like Jim Langer, Manny Fernandez of the 72 Dolphins, who elected to not go visit the president when the opportunity was presented, when Obama was the president and they were celebrating the 72 Dolphins and what they achieved. Tim Thomas of the Boston Bruins, when he elected not to visit the president of the United States. Mark Chmura of the Green Bay Packers didn't go visit President Clinton. I didn't see this overwhelming majority of sports people and figures coming down on these players who chose and opt not to go visit the president or visit the White House when they were presented with the opportunity. And all of them had their own personal reasons why they didn't want to do it. And I don't care if it was more cultural, as more if it was policy and principle. The fact of the matter is, at some particular point, Steph Curry has to look at his children and say, that picture of him shaking hands with someone who's being perceived as a racist, someone who's being perceived as prejudiced and bigoted and shows bigotry towards other minorities. How do you reconcile that? How do you have that conversation? You can't. And I think that's the part that Charles Barkley fails to realize. It's one thing if you're asking the Golden State Warriors to proactively set up an opportunity to sit down and talk with the president about agendas and things that need to be discussed with regards to the current state of America culture, of America's society, of the times that we're living in. But I would certainly not be doing that when all they're supposed to be doing is going to the White House, taking some pictures and throwing up a jersey or giving a jersey to the president. That to me is not something that yields constructive means to discussing the matters at hand. Now, I will say that by Steph Curry and Kevin Durant doing what they're doing, and given the personality of the president, it is now brought to the attention of what teams should be thinking about when they go to the White House, and if whether or not there is that true and genuine opportunity to discuss matters that fall outside the scope of sports, when it becomes things of our life, when it becomes things that are prevalent in the everyday lives that we lead. So if you are Charles Barkley, tread very carefully on how you chastise these players when they're making a personal decision of being around people who are not looking out for their best interests at heart, who are not of the same ilk in their belief in their principles. And while we talk about this whole thing about reaching across the aisle and showing a level of compromise, let's be very clear here. If that was what we were talking about, then this certainly wouldn't have been the forum for them to do it. It would have been the forum to show that it was celebrated. And until we get to that point where there is a balance and understanding, where Steph Curry can feel like Donald Trump is not against his kind, his skin color, his people, his family values, his beliefs, when there is some level of talk and discussion that is balanced between those two, then maybe that photo opportunity, that time that they go to the White House, can be honored and celebrated in its purest form. To catch more of the Baseline NBA podcast, be sure to check out our show, the Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. The Baseline NBA podcast hosted by me and my co-host Warren Shaw of Shaw Sports. Be sure to check him out at Shaw Sports NBA. You can get at my Twitter handle at GameFace